Around 4 years ago, there was a group of guys who started a movement that was taking the world over by storm. And some of the guys in this group were fairly highly ranked high school players. But we haven't heard anything about this group or the movement in a while, so what happened? Starting a movement is something that is very hard to do because everybody has to buy into it and like it, and it has to be something new. But the players we're going to talk about in this video did just that. However, maybe they were hyped up too much. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Meet the Jellyfam. Now, the Jellyfam was composed of many members, but most notably Isaiah Washington and Jahvon Quinerly. Some of the more notable members went by the name of LeAndre Washington, Jaquay James, Sid Wilson, Pedro Marquez, and they even had a girl in the group known as Melissa Reed. And there are some other players in the group, but those are the more notable players in the Jellyfam. And it started out in New York City, but very quickly expanded. The movement was actually started by Isaiah Washington and Jaquay James. However, one player came in and made it even more popular, and that player went by no other than Jahvon Quinerly. Isaiah Washington and Jaquay James made the Jellyfam really popular when they was going to parks and bringing that finesse layup into action. And if you're wondering where the inspiration came from this idea, it actually started with Michael Jordan. Isaiah came up with the idea because he studied Michael Jordan and just loved how he would float in the air and switch hands and do finesse layups. Eventually, Isaiah and Jaquay James just sat down and said, we gotta think of a name for what we're doing, and they came up with the Jellyfam. And that night when they were talking, that was when the movement was born. But they made it very clear from the start they didn't want it to just be them, they wanted to add other good players. This is when they started recruiting the best players from the New York City area to the Jellyfam. Now, although Isaiah Washington is the face of Jellyfam, when Jahvon Quinerly joined, he expanded the movement even more and bigger. A big part of that had to do with he was a 5-star recruit and a top point guard in his class. Isaiah Washington was only a 4-star recruit, so he did have some clout, but not as much as Jahvon Quinerly. Once Isaiah Washington and Jaquay James started recruiting all these players, they only had one more thing to do, that is to go out and ball out. One of Isaiah's teammates, known as Sid Wilson, even went on Instagram one day and noticed that all of them started changing their names to the Jellyfam. And Sid Wilson asked him about it. He was like, yo, what does that mean? And Isaiah responded and was like, yo, that's the new movement, it's the new wave. So you know Sid Wilson, he was like, alright, bet, how do I join? What do I gotta do? And Isaiah responded, you gotta do 3 jellies in a game. And ironically, he did just that. Before the game, his name on Instagram was IM_Sid Wilson. And after the game, he changed it to Jellyfam_Sid. So it was official, he joined the movement and the team. And around that same time, this is when everybody started to change their name to the Jellyfam. So that was how the group formed and came together and started the movement. So what was next? Well, that question kind of answers itself. When you start a movement like that, you got to continue to expand it. So during the games, they had to do jelly layups all the time. They started doing jelly layups so much that they literally quit dunking to do a jelly layup. And one of their mottos and key things was if someone's guarding you one-on-one and if you're on that island, you gotta blow past them and do a jelly. Jahvon Quinerly was the 2017 Gatorade Player of the Year, and in an outdoor game, he did a 360 jelly layup that sent the crowd going crazy. But not only that, the internet took notice as well. The Jellyfam really started to grow a lot because of social media, and they even say this in interviews. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, it all helped them expand their brand. And this wasn't just some silly brand they were starting, this was even on t-shirts and shoes. And if you're questioning just how serious this movement was, there was a long period of time where every kid, when they would do a layup, they would scream out jelly. This wasn't just in one area of the country, this was literally in every state. So at this point in time, things were looking great for these guys. Jahvon was a 5-star recruit, Isaiah Washington was a 4-star recruit, and all the other guys were good as well. So these guys only had one thing left to do, finish their high school careers and get the movement even bigger and better in college and the NBA. And Jordan Walker, who was a guy in the Jellyfam movement, even said he thought it was going to get bigger in college as well because that's more fans. And these guys were even talking about when they make it to the NBA, they were going to start their own brand. But not only that, LeAndre Washington said they were all going to go to the NBA.
I think we all going to go to the NBA. I believe that.
And once again, he stated that they were going to start their own brand and make their own company. And he also later added that he thought this thing was going to blow up. However, this was not the case. So what happened to the Jellyfam movement? Let's dive into the details. After having an outstanding high school career, Isaiah decided to sign with Minnesota. And this seemed like a great fit for him, however, it just wasn't that good. He wound up only playing 2 seasons for this team and only averaged 6.6 points per game. Not only that, he also pitched in 2.6 assists and 2.1 rebounds. He also shot a very terrible 34.7% from the field. You guys can say, oh, those stats aren't too bad, he was only a freshman and sophomore, and yes, I get it, but for what he was doing in college and for what was expected out of him, those did not live up to the expectations. With Isaiah just having a really shaky 2-year career at Minnesota, he decided to return home and go to Iona. And in his junior year, he had a pretty good season. He played 33 minutes per game, which is basically the entire game, and averaged 11.4 points per game. And he jumped all of his stats up as well. He shot 40% from the field, averaged 5 rebounds and 4 assists. So all in all, for his junior season, he had a good year, and that's what we expected out of him at Minnesota. But after the season ended, he decided to enter the transfer portal once again. And on June 15th in 2020, he announced that he was going to transfer to Long Beach State. And unless he receives a waiver, he's going to have to sit out for a year. But that's the up-to-date on Isaiah Washington. And overall, for a 4-star recruit and a guy who literally started the Jellyfam movement, I can say he completely disappeared. So with that being said, let's dive into our other players. Let's go to the other co-founder, Jaquay James. Well, for Jaquay James, he had a very bumpy road. In his senior season of high school, he was arrested. There wasn't too much said about the incident, but all that was released to the public was that he was in a violent altercation with 2 minors. So when this happens, obviously you're going to lose value in the eyes of college coaches. So he actually lost a lot of good D2 and low D1 offers. But ultimately, he decided to go play for Navarro College, which was a junior college in Texas. And for his freshman year, he had a pretty good season. He averaged right at 11.5 points per game and shot right at 42% from the field. He also happened to pitch in 4 assists and 2 rebounds. So for just being a freshman, those are pretty good numbers. And I understand he wasn't playing against great competition, but hey, at least he was putting up great numbers. However, his story does not stop there either. Following his freshman year, he wound up transferring to a Mineral Area College, which was another junior college in Missouri. And I did a lot of digging and I literally couldn't find anything about him, but he was a part of the team up until January 2nd. But after January 2nd, he was actually taken off the roster of the team. So on the official roster, he is not on there. And as of today, it is currently unknown why he is no longer on the roster or where he currently plays or plans to play. That is just crazy. He literally was the co-founder of a crazy movement and now he's not even playing basketball. So with that being said, let's head over to another one of our players, Sid Wilson. After he committed to St. John's for the 2017 through 18 season, he decided to transfer to Connecticut. And for his first year there, he had a red shirt, which was obvious. And in his 2 seasons at UConn so far, he's only averaging 4 points per game and 2.3 rebounds. And he's also struggling shooting the ball. He's only shooting 37.6% from the field. One thing also to note is that he saw a huge decline in his minutes from his freshman or sophomore season, which is not normal because after your freshman year, you're supposed to gain minutes per game, not lose them. Also, another thing, he actually started 6 times during his freshman year, but in his sophomore season, he didn't start at all. But we also gotta talk about the bad. He has already received 2 suspensions from the NCAA, 1 for his freshman year and 1 for his sophomore year. Both of these were because he violated team rules. But as of today, he stated that he will return to UConn for his junior season. Hopefully he can put it all together, but it really seems like he's struggling. Now let's head over to our next and other player, Jahvon Quinerly. Out of all the guys we're going to talk about, his story is more encouraging. Right after high school, he decided to sign and go play for Villanova. And in his freshman year, which was the year 2018 through 19, he didn't play a lot. However, this was not his fault because they were absolutely loaded at the point guard position. He only played 9 minutes per game, but averaged 3.2 points and shot right at 33% from the field. And if you watched him that year, it just really didn't seem like a good fit for him. So after his freshman year, he decided to transfer. And this is when he really fell off and disappeared, but it wasn't really his fault. Quinerly entered the transfer portal and decided to transfer to the University of Alabama. But however, he was denied a transfer waiver, so he had to sit out the entire season of 2019 through 2020. Even though he had to sit out, he was still practicing with the team and a lot of the coaches said he was doing really well. And he still has 3 years left of eligibility, so he's going to make his season debut for Alabama this coming up year. And out of all these players, I'm most excited for Jahvon Quinerly because I still think he has a lot of gas left in the tank. And that's it for our Jellyfam. That is where they currently sit today. And oh yeah, Leon J. Washington, which was the guy who said they all can go to the NBA, NBA, which is most definitely not going to happen, well, he's also in college too. He wound up going to Robert Morris and had a pretty decent freshman season. For his freshman season, he averaged right at 8.4 points per game. He shot 30% from the 3-point line, which is okay, and shot 33% from the field, which isn't too hot. And I don't know what's up with these guys in transferring, but he also transferred after his freshman year as well. And like Jahvon Quinerly, he had to sit out a year. But he did wind up transferring to McNeese State. And well, let's just say things aren't exactly going that great. Out of 23 games played, he only started one of them and only averaged right at 14 minutes per game. And from the field, he only shot 35%, and from the 3-point line, he shot a terrible 23%. And for the season, he only averaged 4.3 points per game. That's not too good. At least our other players are increasing their stats. This guy had a decrease in his stats. And it's really ironic to me because this guy said they all can go to the NBA, and out of all of them, he's probably doing the worst. All of the players in the Jellyfam movement have one thing in common. They started a great and big movement, but they've just slowly fell off. They were all big time stars in high school and things were great, but once they went to that next level and in college, they just folded under the pressure. They all got in situations where they didn't see success right away in college, and some of them even transferred. And I think a big part in that is because when they were in high school, they were getting all the attention, the clout, and the hype, and they felt like the big time dog. But once they got to college, they realized that nobody cares about that and you gotta earn your stripes. And I hate to say this, and it may not be the case, but I think it might be the case. I really think they expect people just to hand them things. That's why they're transferring to smaller colleges, so they can be the big time dog. However, I will say I don't think Jahvon Quinerly is like that because he's grinding it out at Alabama, and I think he's going to have a great year this season. The Jellyfam group was a huge movement around 4 years ago, but flash forward in time, almost nobody even says anything about them or even says jelly when they do a layup. And even if some people do, it's definitely not like it was back then. But hey man, with all this being said, that's about gonna wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something. If you are new to the channel, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button and leave a like for more. And as always, let's be great. I'm out, y'all. Peace.